Welcome, folks. I'm the Captain, Ross Memphis Pambrun, and with me, as always, my friend, the President, Lawrence Trebay. We're broadcasting from Calgary in Region 3 of the Métis Nation of Alberta, which is part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We would also like to acknowledge these lands are the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda, with whom we share this land on the basis of our historical and ongoing relationships. We would also like to say thank you to our First Nation friends, to the Métis settlements, and to our Métis brothers and sisters and families. We would also like to give thanks to our elders for their guidance and to Mother Earth for the time she allows us to be here and share her bounty. And now, folks, let's get the wheel squeaking. And here we are again, folks, Southern Alberta. Most of us pretty close to the center of the Calgary universe, where the Flames actually won an absolutely wonderful, stunning game the other night. And with me, as always, my friend, the co-host, the president of Region 3, Lawrence Gervais. Folks, I'm Ross Memphis Pambrun, CEO of the Metis Group, very involved in our Métis community, and always thank for all of the support from the youth all the way to the elders, everybody who's connected and everybody who stays involved within our community. Thank you to our subscribers. Thank you to all the people who are participating in connecting with our community. Thank you for joining our virtual events. Thank you for your time and contribution. And here we are, Lawrence, at another squeaky wheel. Let's give them another good week of Métis conversation.
Yeah, one day we're going to add music. I'll probably end up shaving eventually too. So I know I'm getting a little beard tired, but
Lawrence, how about this? We do that Barber of Seville music, and you have, let's say, 25 seconds to try and shave your face, or we put on a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and during that period of time is when you have to have yourself shaved. Let's make it part of the show.
Well, Don Quixote is really affluent to, losing his love of Keytree to some barber, right? But
yeah,
but he walked the earth with a big beard and, wanted to find his true love, fought the windmills of time, but no, that's not me because I already have it. But but at the same time, yeah, I'm really looking forward to actually feeling the warmth sun on my skin without this big hair thing right here.
And I don't. I'm just throwing this out here for all of our listeners, folks. There's no conflict of interest here. I have no investment in Men's Hair Club or the Men's Hair Dye or anything like that. Lawrence, if you look at the screen, you may notice that there's a fair bit of gray there.
Yeah, I know.
I don't necessarily know how well that stuff works. I have been asked a number of times, are you sure, Ross, that you don't dye your hair? Folks, I want to point out a few things right up there if you look closely. There is a lot of gray that's starting to come in there. But you have the ability, Lawrence, to get a bit of good beard growth going, whereas I always seem to be patchy. Though the gray is coming in, it definitely makes you look distinguished, or it makes it look like you should be fighting grizzly bears.
Well, true. But it's actually kind of cool because if I ever audition for a movie, I still have a cool beard. If Reverend comes back and they really want somebody who's Métis in the film and not somebody else who, is trying to fit a role of Hollywood. But, when we watch Reverend, we go, whoa, wow, that guy's Métis, but they're not even saying that. They're from the South and they're fur traders, and it's a very confusing identity thing every time I watch that show. But, whatever. I wish I was a man making Hollywood. I'd make it a little different and just have a lot of this everywhere and us actually being Métis.
Well, and it's very challenging nowadays because anybody in the world of any media, including ourselves, you have to be very conscious of the things that you say, and you need to be very representative.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to step outside. In which case, I know you and I have said this many times before, Lawrence. Why is the phone not ringing? For all you producers out there, when you're looking for Métis actors, actually, there's probably a lot of really good ones out there. There's no doubt, and ones we've talked to before. But if you're needing a couple of Métis actors who spend a lot of time on podcasts, who have fairly significant beards and delicate voices, and sit in good podcasts, folks, we're right here. So you come and find us. Lawrence, just want to say thank you to all of our subscribers. Folks, make sure you go to our YouTube channel. Hit that little subscribe button. We're going to hit a number of things today, Lawrence. We're going to talk a little bit about baseball. I know we're going to talk a little bit about Constitution. I know you've got a few things you wanted to bring up for conversation that you're going to bounce at me, and I'm going to have to try and figure out as we go. So I'm always looking forward to that because it really keeps our dialogue moving with a lot of good energy and a lot of fun and respect for each other and our opinions. Baseball. I know you're as passionate about it. You might even be having had your time living in Toronto. You might be more in tune with sometimes with what's happening in the game. But let's talk baseball. You excited about the season?
Well, I remember. I mean, I was a season ticket holder in the Blue Jays. You don't meet a lot of people like me, and I was there when Clemens won his Cy Young, and people don't remember that Clemens was a member of the Blue Jays either. But
yeah, Roger Clemens. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I'm a Blue Jays fan from start to finish all the way. I hope they get to the World Series again, but I hope this year's a little different because now they got a few young players, and now they got some good veteran players, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But as long as they're staying safe, that's another thing because there's no bubble at all, right?
Yeah, and you look at all the pro sports and tying pro sports into look at the Raptors this last week. Yeah. Professional basketball team now, sadly, all of our Canadian teams, well, with Blue Jays and Raptors for the most part, playing down south. And yeah, the struggle with the bubble. Well, Raptors lost all their coaches. They just recently lost about 4 of their starters due to the COVID protocols and the health and safety protocols. Have been doing quite well, but it's a difficult year when you just look at it and go, boy, my team normally would have beat them. Sure, but most of the team wasn't there, and you just got to accept, it's almost like the league should say, okay, if you are missing 50% of your players and you lose, the other team really only gets 50% of the value of the win. And try and see how it all gets carried out at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bettman tried to cancel the whole year. I mean, he was just like, no one's going to be making money. What's the point, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, he's really not wrong. I mean, if it's a business, certainly.
It's a business,
yeah. You've got to think of that. But, yeah, I mean, you're taking a chance outside of a bubble. Or if you can try to play the bubble game with inside, the larger community, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, we just had the Tournament of Hearts here, and really there was a lot of money brought into the southern Alberta and the Calgary region. This sounded like a really successful bubble that had gone on. Mm-hmm. So wonderful curling. I know my parents are at home every night catching every one of the games, and I think the men's are starting up here right away with, I imagine, the same sort of protocols. But the whole bubble philosophy is, if you could do it like the NBA where everybody was just locked in place and they still had some difficulty. Yeah, when all of a sudden people are just coming and going, but do your best and we're going to test you a lot. I can only imagine the headaches and the sort of necessity for the honesty from all of the participants to try and make it work.
Yeah, I mean, and plus we got the Stampede coming. As far as we know, it's still going. It's going to come here. We'll see how that goes in terms of how they're going to keep these rodeo guys in their bubbles.
That's true. And I sure do hope, because it is the part of the fabric of this lower part of the province, I'm praying that it comes back around again. Lawrence, we'd gotten a few emails, and I know I'd mentioned that we were going to have this move into this part of the conversation, but you would be the one in this Region 3 area who could educate us a little bit on where we're at when it comes to the Constitution, the questions that people are having, and what's your perspective of how we move forward?
Well, we have to go through the process. Number one, it has to reach the members for a vote. I mean, most of the time since I've been here, members have a chance to vote during the election. They get a chance to vote at our assemblies, our AGMs, those types of things. But here's another thing that they really have to pay attention to, understand, read through the documents, and and understand why self-government is so important for Métis people. You know, they've been trying to instill a constitution since Louis Riel's time. But it took years because Alberta government wouldn't recognize it. Canada wouldn't recognize it. But now, since Daniels and Métis Nation Accord and our own framework agreement with Alberta and Canada, now it's important to Canada that we actually go through the exercise of self-government. And it's important to Métis people because we've been fighting for this recognition for a long time. But we also have to make informed decisions too. So you really have to take part in the hearings, you know, if you're in the round table, make sure that you're in the round table, you're communicating amongst each other as best we can, but also at the same time, see the vote through. It's not a process that we can just cancel at any point in time. It has to be brought to the members, and it has to be with no interference from any politics or anything like that. Everything has to be brought to them. And it's my job to actually educate as much as I can so people can make an informed decision. Whether it's yay or nay, that's really up to the members themselves. And we just have to take a step back as leaders. But at the same time, create the vehicles so they understand it. And, you know, the whole goal is to achieve sovereignty, right? For us to be our own government. And that's what Louis Riel's goal was in the past. He achieved it, but it was very short-lived because of other things that happened, right? So we, you know, as Métis Nation, we have got to continue the cause and prepare for the future, especially for our communities.
And, you know, right now, and we've talked about this before, it's distinct culture is a question, it's a challenge. Who represents, who should represent who? You know, we've talked about colonialism before. We've talked about imperialism before. As a citizenship moves forward, I think this becomes part of its identity.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and a constitution is more like a rule book, you know, on how we govern ourselves, and it has to be decided now, and it has to be decided by the community. And like I said, people can go to albertametisgov.com, and just check out and see what we have there. There's an FAQ sheet they can just go through there really quickly, actually see a timeline, negotiations, like a draft of the Constitution, and then how we're engaging the citizens. And that's, you know, pretty much how it has to go.
Yeah, I think we're the vessel to tell people, folks, when you have these questions, when you want questions at a higher level than you and I can provide, albertametis.com. You'll get, it's a great starting point. And if you don't find some of the answers to the frequently asked questions, reach out to us and we'll ask the questions.
Yeah.
And we'll share that conversation for everybody on the squeaky wheel. Because if I've always learned, and I think it's a very important shared message, that if it's a question you have, there's a real good likelihood that somebody else is asking the same one.
Yeah.
So it's just important that we bring these to into the conversation.
And as a member of provincial council, I've been to the meetings, I've seen the draft, I've gone to the website, I know, I read, I understand it. Come and ask me a question, right? Test my skills and test my knowledge of what I know of the Constitution, right? If I go, well, I don't know, and then I'm giving you a disservice, right? So At the same time, we can research together even if we don't know. But at the same time,
I think that's
you won't find me turning you away in terms of if you have a question about this Constitution.
And I always tell people too, I don't expect everybody to know everything, but offer to find the information and get back to somebody. That's you know, an individual's responsibility, especially your responsibility. And if you don't get back to them, well, then you're shirking your duty. But if people ask the question, I think we've always gone out of our way to try and answer or look it up. And with our vignettes that we're doing, we're trying to share just that one little more tidbit of who the Métis people are based on the best historical information that's available. But as I'm the first to say, I didn't really understand it for a long time. So I'm a part of this journey just like anybody else.
Yeah, that's right. And then, seek us, go to the subscribe button, email me, and find out, and I'll answer it. I can guarantee it. I'm not a member of the commission myself, but at least I'm here for the community if they ever have a question.
And share that stuff too with us, folks. If you're working on a First Nations project, if you're working on a Métis project, if you're working on any kind of Indigenous project, please let us know what you're working on. We've had some emails that I forwarded to you of individuals who are looking to build into our community, build opportunities for areas not just of virtual education, but actually physical structures. We're going to get to the point where there's a larger footprint of Métis historical information that people can go and see, visit, and new areas to participate. So when we get these messages that people are working on these projects, we're happy to share them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Ross. Hopefully we can, like I said, like albertametesgov.com, and maybe Jason can throw this on the screen now. Go there and check out the Constitution. And if you have a question, just send me an email, lgervais@metis.org. And that's who I am.
And folks, you can always reach us here at tsw@metis3.org. As well, our website, metis3.org. Lawrence, let's move on to something that's going to be a little bit fun, because I always enjoy this. With my little company, where we use satellites to watch things going around in order to do environmental monitoring, the thing that I tend to follow is a little bit of the space stuff. And one of the things that has been so predominant recently was the Mars rover, Perseverance. That I watched it, and it floated down and landed. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited for all the people who shipped that thing over, and I think it was 9 months to get there. And I'm happy that it landed, and I'm happy that it's starting to take pictures. Boy, we're spending there's a lot of resources that are invested to trying to sift through more moon rock. Technically not moon rock, I guess it'd be more like space rock, because it's not the moon, it's another orbiting planet. But sifting through there to search for life. Shouldn't we be also really more concerned about what's happening on our environmental turf?
Well, we should. I mean, maybe people are looking for a way to escape. Maybe don't be.
I think we've all seen a lot of those movies, yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I seen that big hotel that looks like the Squeaky Wheel right here, stuck up. Yeah. They should actually call it the Squeaky Wheel. But the hotel, the resort, they're planning to go out there in 2027. You just fly up and go to your room up there in the stars. But it's funny, because I went to their website and there's a picture of a guy slam dunking a basketball. And I thought, that's pretty cool. We can all go up there and start playing basketball and slam dunking. But, and then, seeing the Mars and what they see, I mean, it's all brown. It's all just desert. There's really nothing there. And then they find an asteroid with some, water on it, and everyone's so excited about that. So, yeah, it's interesting. And then, of course, Elon Musk's rocket going up and then coming down and crashing. Everyone's cheering, and it's all a ball of flames. And I don't know, I think space exploration right now is where it's at. Maybe people are going to go up there and start panning for gold. I'm not sure, or panning for life. I really don't know at the end of the day.
Well, and I might be giving something away, folks, and I'm willing to admit it. I am a Trekkie. I absolutely love Star Trek. I love space. I like working with the satellites that we work with. I like the information that we can glean. In our case, in what we do, we look back at Earth.
Right.
I love looking out there, and I imagine, you think all the planets that are out there. I cannot think that there isn't some other kind of life out there. Maybe not necessarily to the level that we're at, but very, very well likely. If we've managed to do it here, if we've managed to really challenge a lot of our environment and figure out how we're going to monitor and respectfully take care of Mother Earth and try and put us back. But I have to imagine somebody else out there is, working through the same questions as we are.
Well, I mean, we're humans. They're going to think of conquering them, or maybe the aliens conquer us. We're leaving that doorway open, right?
Yeah. And hey, again, most of my philosophies, I think actually quite a number of my philosophies of how I approach things come from all of my favorite Star Trek characters, whether it's Captain Kirk, who approaches it with a sort of a sternness, or whether it's Picard, who really is very conscientious and thinks its way through, or Captain Janeway, who she would really work well with her team, but at the end of the day, ultimately the responsibility fall to her. Yeah, that's the leadership side of it, but the exploration, the excitement of that, the show always carried that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we're all still searching for. Maybe that's what the Métis are searching for in a way, but we're just trying to still find it here in southern Alberta, where it often seems that the province doesn't necessarily think that there is that many Métis down here, and yet we sure are seemingly finding a lot of spots in the earth that are being, what is it, archaeologically discovered.
Yeah.
That all these Metis trails, and then all of the products that were carried by our Métis brothers and sisters and families over all the years, sure seems like there's a bit of a footprint down here.
Well, I mean, we are discovering that. I mean, we started this digital mapping exercise with the Capstone project at SAIT, and we're uncovering, cart trails all over Western Canada with a strong focus on southern Alberta. But I'm really surprised because they layer one map and then another map on top of each other, and then all of a sudden you just see them, and you're like, whoa, there was quite a bit of trails before Canada was even around here, right? So, I mean, certainly some of those were First Nations, for thousands of years, and we just kind of inherited it as a car trail. But at the same time, there's lots of trails, and probably trails they use too, right? So, yeah, we're pretty excited about that project, and I think with your satellite imagery program that you're doing, we're going to be able to possibly mesh that and actually possibly even see some current trails on the landscape that nobody knows about.
Something that's actually kind of neat that I hadn't really thought about was many, many, many moons ago, if you wanted to discover new historic buildings, when they were looking over South America, you would sort of walk the trails, and they would eventually come across the Incas, and they would find relics. Well, a number of years ago, they started using planes, and we're moving now, and it was moving into more even satellite images, where as it looks down at a forest canopy, and they could see that there was an imperfection or a perfection in the sense of how there was a delineation that didn't necessarily make sense. And I think it was only about 5 years ago where this young, I think he was a teenager, was looking at this, and he submitted saying, I think underneath all of that canopy, which could be 1,500, thousands of years old, many thousands of years old, that there was a Inca structure. And yep, they went and looked at it, and at the same time, then they started looking on the side of mountains and seeing that there was historic drawings and paintings that were of long gone people who had lived there. So, yeah, as we look from space and look at the pattern changes, it'd be kind of neat to see, can we find something? Can we find a little bit more? There's one thing about verifying, but can we find a little more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what your technology is great. I mean, geez, capturing forest fires to, serving what they see on a pipeline or, what they see there. But, I think it adds a little bit of a historic value when we can actually pinpoint historic points and see a 5 by 5 meter square on the earth. I think that's great, from a satellite.
Yeah. It's almost a shout out. Thank you, Lawrence. Yeah, folks, when you get real bored, go to www.memphisgroup.ca. I do a 1 minute what exactly it is that we do. And it's fun when I use the term multispectral, because when you're looking at the RGB colors, the kind of colors that they used to use for your TVs and still use for your TVs and LED, there's stuff that our eyes can't see, but the satellites we use can see it. So when we look for these environmental changes, it's pretty neat. Because we're looking at things that our eyes normally wouldn't see. But yeah, thank you. Which then ties us to the next thing that I wanted to just sort of bang a little bit about, was the stock market. Now, we did talk, I think last week or the week before, about how everybody was fighting the hedge funds, and we were seeing these enormous trades and people investing in products that sadly are ultimately going to fail, but how the markets were reacting. Some of the historic games and things like that, the bread and butter that the gamers used to really get into, they didn't they understood that it was going to go away, but they didn't like the way that it was being manipulated. Well, now you're seeing Tesla, even Elon Musk himself, as we go back to the talk about this, the spaceships that they're trying to set up, or the rockets that they're trying to launch, and then ultimately end up landing and doing a great job, but blowing up. Well, he himself has said he doesn't understand why Tesla stock is so valued. It is just so high up there, but all tech stocks have just taken 20-30% huge drops. But the thing I really want to point out is that everybody right now really wants to invest in tech because they want to see electric vehicles. They want to see that we're doing so much less damage to Mother Earth as our battery powered everything is moving around. But if you follow, folks, what's happening in the world of energy right now, in order to make batteries, the energy has to come from somewhere. Yeah. And maybe someday we could all have an electric fan that's being generating energy. But until you're willing to put that on your car and can drive around with it and have some way that there's enough wind to power it, how are you getting that energy? So the world of oil still has an impact. And what they're finding is they're able to get and mine out of the oil and out of the wells that we've built. We're getting the products in order to help build the batteries. So we're part of it.
Yeah.
Alberta's part of it.
Isn't Elon Musk the guy that, invested $1 billion in Bitcoin and stuff like that and that technology, and that's still it's still mining energy, right? At the same time, right?
Yes.
So
you're right.
I think what we should do is put everybody on a Peloton bike. Sorry, I'm not advertising Peloton, so if they sue me. And then,
folks, I can attest, I don't think he has any stock in it.
But mining, the energy from treadmills and bikes and exercise, and get those guys going, and pretty soon they're making money. Hey, you can make money going a treadmill. Why not?
Well, and it's the same with any argument. People are always very quick to throw stones in glass houses, and they want more for the environment. But for some reason, they're not willing to ride their bike to work. Well, how are you planning on getting there? Because I get it. You think to yourself, well, if I drive my electric vehicle, I'm not doing any harm to the environment. It took more energy
to produce the
to
electric
make
vehicle,
those batteries than you will ever be able to recoup.
Yeah.
For such a long time. It's incredible. And we are getting better. The batteries are getting better. But just like you think of our phones that we have now, that some of the material ends up damaging the rainforests, but people don't want to give up their phones. Well, folks, how much rainforest is being lost for your phone, but yet you're willing to complain about how that the oil industry is so challenging. And I'm not saying that the oil industry doesn't need to be monitored, just like anybody who's in any kind of business. There needs to be some checks and balances. Everybody has the right to ask the question, how is it being utilized? Is there a way to utilize things better? But, my rant here on both sides of it is somebody from the tech agency is going to be slapping me, but somebody from the oil industry and even the people who are the environmentalists are going to be slapping me, because I'm just saying we all still have to work together, and we'll all move forward if we work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And if boardrooms are more inept to having environmentalists involved or environmentalists on staff, maybe there might be change there, considered. So, it goes all around. And then the environmental impact assessments that are always produced in most projects, those have to be listened to too, and at least have some authority. So there's that too. Yeah. I mean, I'm more of an environmentalist than I am a pro-oil person at the same day, right? So, but I understand economy still has to run. These vehicles still have to run, and I understand that. Yeah. And you need a healthy balance of both, like all the way.
And there was a time, and folks, we may be headed back to that time, that families may only have one vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And, if one person's lost their job, people, I get it. They don't want to change the way their lifestyle was. But, it may be okay for a while to go down to one vehicle and plan your time on how you're going to use it. We forget how easy it is to drive the vehicle, but when you start to think about what it costs, the insurance, the registration, the fuel, the cost of the vehicle itself, the maintenance, there's different ways we need to reevaluate this. And if you're a really, really, really staunch environmentalist, sometimes you got to look again in the mirror and go, how much am I doing to try and help out? But we also do need to look at the environment and industry and say, how badly do you need to start mining in an area that has been protected and preserved for so long?
Well, that is right. I mean, and what is the benefit? Because, they're mining coal. The coal is being shipped from Vancouver to China and other countries, right? So where is the benefit for Albertans or Canadians, right, at the end of the day? Because they're extracting all that resource and pushing it somewhere else. So, I mean, people have to consider if it's taxes, yes. If it's a contribution to the communities, yes, I understand that. But we really have to, as Canadians, understand, like, when we start approving these mines, which may not be for a while. I mean, we're not at that stage yet. That, what at the end of the day is what the benefit to Canadians and my kids, what's the benefit to them?
And folks, we've said it many times before, all you oil industry and all your energy groups, make sure you're inviting the Métis to the table. Part of it is a jurisprudent requirement based on this government and the necessity to include the Métis into the conversation, but also we're a part of this land, and I think we do a pretty good job of wanting to include everybody in conversation. As they continue to move forward, they should be including us. Yeah,
I mean, we're stewards at the end of the day, and we're Indigenous folks too, and we understand. We're children of the fur trade, so we understand what technology means too. We had our own little ways of producing our own with carts and York boats and those things to move furs quicker, because there was it was part of the economy, right? And I know it's an old way of technology, but those things were invented for a reason. And I think moving into this disruption of oil and gas and all these individuals who are inventing new ways of technology, that's something that maybe Elon Musk should be focusing on. Bill Gates, they should be focusing on how to make these things more environmentally safe, these technologies.
Well, folks, you heard it here from Lawrence. By next week, I think he will be talking to Elon Musk and Bill Gates. So if you get a chance, Lawrence, reach out to both of them and just say hi from me as well, because, I imagine those two would be hard to get in touch with. Anytime they tweet anything, there's a huge reaction.
Actually,
in any
you
kind
have
of
more of a
industry
chance of meeting him than me, so just so you know.
Well, true. If I get a good chance to go to a good satellite meeting, maybe I'll run into him. Last couple things I just wanted to banter on a little bit about is how many books by Dr. Seuss are you reading to the kids? Because I see more cancel culture in it. I find it still confusing of that, how our world is reacting to Dr. Seuss books, and then eBay's deciding not to sell them or allow people to sell them, but you can still buy Mein Kampf on eBay. I'm not too sure who should be the people who have the right to make those decisions, but I think it's really going to, it's a big reflection on how our world reacts to everything. And I'm curious as to who brought forth some of these issues, or is it just people looking to incite frustration or anger or their point of view on the next thing?
Well, I mean, I go from experience. I've never read Dr. Seuss myself as a kid, so I don't really read that to them. My kids are really into Disney, and then and the Disney books, those and they're fantastic actually. You can just pick a story and they're only 10 minutes long and you just read to them from there. But if they ever have like an extreme dialogue about something, you talk to them and you let them know that this may not be the perspective nowadays, but it was back then. And if you go on Disney Plus and watch a movie there, now they have disclaimers. Like we put on Aladdin the other day and it was about 20 seconds of this warning of, that the things were different back then. And, the how we related to Asian people was a little bit different, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, you're starting to see that happening in a lot more, whether it be in a lot of places in the arts, so that people understand that I think that they're not trying to misrepresent. They're not trying to suggest that it wasn't inappropriate. They're trying to suggest we've moved forward and we all need to be a bit more accepting.
Yeah.
And if it's not something that you want to participate in, you can also, opt out and not feel as though you shouldn't feel as though you're offending anybody.
Yeah. I mean, you have to remember these terms are offensive to certain groups. And once they come forward and say, yes, this is offensive to me, well, then rethink how you do things. So like, the Cleveland Indians, changing their name. Well, I understand that because I'm Indigenous and it may be a derogatory term to people that see it, or seeing the little Sambo sort of looking Indian character that they used, right, and getting rid of that, all the way to this talk about the Eskimos, the Edmonton Eskimos, right? How close is it to Inuit territory? And if I was an Inuit person and I'm living in Edmonton and I hear people saying Edmonton Eskimos and not just Eskies or Esks, then I might have a concern there. So, I mean, it all depends on the group.
But I also find it's, a lot of times, and we need to explore it, the context of it, because just as many people who I've talked to, and I'm not suggesting that they're right, but they've said to me, they are, who have an Indigenous background, they are not offended or hurt or upset about the term Indian or being called Indian. Mm-hmm. In fact, they're comfortable with it. So, what do we say to those people? Now, again, I'm not suggesting that they're not wrong, but I'm also suggesting that if this is how they feel, then they have the right to feel that it's okay.
Yeah.
So, folks, I might have just made sure I talked myself into a way that says, don't throw anything at me. Don't send your hate emails this way. I'm saying it still needs to be in conversation.
Yeah.
And people who I've talked to who represent any kind of minority group often will say, who's asking, who's presenting a question, who's involving the conversation. If they're coming at it from a respectful way, they're more than happy to have a conversation. Things shouldn't just be shut down. Otherwise, the conversation doesn't happen. So
yeah, that is true. I mean, it's always about half-breed, and half-breed's written in, law. It's written in agreements. It's written in, half-breed script commission. I mean, we always refer to that. But are we calling ourselves half-breeds now? No.
No.
So, and then, the Canadian census in the old days would check you off as Métis, but then right away check you off as, or country born, or just say, half breed or English breed, Scotch breed, you know what I mean? And French breed. And they would actually list you as FB or SB and all that stuff, right? So they had a term in Canadian government how they refer to us as breeds, and that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. But I don't think that, unless there was somebody originally who said, well, let's call them this because this will really upset everybody 50, 100 years from now. I don't think that that's necessarily what the intent was.
No.
But if we're here now and people want to have a conversation about it, when the day comes that people are offended by your beard, well, then we're really going to have to deal with it. So, folks, we're at the 1 year mark when it comes to COVID. A lot of our programs started as a result of, we knew things were going to be happening virtually, but Lawrence and you and I wanted to have the conversation from a Métis perspective. It's a big hurdle. It's a milestone, I guess. We're all hoping that by June, just as many people as seemingly Trudeau says will, and that information seems to change by every 5 minutes, and whether or not he's trying to defend himself for something that he's done or trying to acknowledge or apologize for something. But he's still, part of that leadership that's trying to ensure that we get our vaccine, and he's saying by the end of June. So let's hope for that, because hopefully that's going to help create more comfort within our communities for people to be able to connect.
Yeah, I mean, now there's 4 vaccines in Canada, and we'll see how they roll out. I think it's going to be a little quicker than June. But that's just, my opinion. At the end of the day, it's just an opinion because I really don't know. It's been a guessing game all year. I mean, you can count the amount, and if we can do a year in review of COVID, the amount of times we've checked our temperatures, we've gone and get our tests, and still come out scot-free, thank God, knock on wood, if I can find wood, right? And hopefully it doesn't get to us by the time the vaccines come. But there's still a chance once you get the vaccine too. So,
Yeah.
Just
it only helps reduce. It's, they say that, but if you follow the experts, and I don't tend to find anti-vaxxers are highly educated experts. I haven't come across too many. So when they send hateful emails as well, I'm sure I'll read those. But when you see the physicians, the well-studied scientists who say 66% protection is still better than no protection.
Yeah.
Let's continue to support.
Yeah, and then the boosters will help get it more and more and more, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Getting that first one's the most important thing, because our bodies haven't gotten it yet. It's brand new.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how we're going to react to it. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Lawrence, I think we covered a lot of things here on the Squeaky Wheel. Folks, thank you again for all of our listeners, our subscribers. You know how to reach out to us. Make sure you send us your requests of information. And, we try to mix things up with guests, sometimes not with guests, just so that we can hit more information. But Lawrence, as always, the President, thank you for your time that you share with me here, and thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, no problem. And wish everybody safe. Hit subscribe. We're going to see probably a new look of the podcast coming fairly soon, and we're pretty excited about that. And we'll see where this all heads.
We're always, folks, you saw some of the original edits that we did before we got the opportunity for Jason to build some of the editing for our editing. We're always moving to new levels. And thank you for all of the sponsors and the supporters and everybody out there who provides us this opportunity. We're always taking the Squeaky Wheel, one more turn, one more level. From us on the Squeaky Wheel, thank you kindly.